My name is Andrii Kryshtal. As I said at the beginning, I work for organization Clear Global, but I was invited here more, I think, to tell about my previous experience in civil society in different areas, mainly in peace building, and I will tell a bit more about what exactly I mean under peace building, because we can understand this in very different ways and in different countries. Yes, I used to work in Ukraine, mainly in the area of dialogue facilitation and mediation, kind of a similar community-based approaches in Kosovo, Serbia, and Libya. And today, how this thing works. Yeah. And today I want to tell a bit more about some very practical examples of what we were doing in Ukraine, building peace infrastructure, I called it here. Basically, it was the way how on the grassroots civil society organizations, based on some peace building approaches, can build peaceful resilience or build new ways how people living in those communities can deal with their conflicts and different issues that they might probably have. But yeah, I want to talk about two topics at the same time. They are very different, yet very connected. The first one will be about this dialogue approach that we implemented in Ukraine, and something very similar in Kosovo. But also, I wanted to talk about civil society in general, especially about civil society in state of how civil society reacts on different crises that can happen in countries. So about post-conflict resolution, as I said, I wanted to talk here about post-conflict resolution and peace building in a quite narrow understanding of it. So we are leaving track 1 and track 2 diplomacy levels to other discussions. We are not going to talk about intergovernmental relations or how international organizations communicate with each other, but about community level. So when the violent or military conflict over, or once you have area which is potentially under threat of some conflict, what actually is possible to do? How can you work with communities to prevent violent decision of it? And how can you learn or work with communities, making them resolve different issues? Yeah, we don't say only conflicts, but any issues. Any issue possibly can be a conflict. How this can be done peacefully. And why I want to talk about communities, because the best and most sustainable way is to work directly with communities, not to send some peacemakers, not to tell people how they should live, but to build this capacity inside, to develop this infrastructure of peace. And I will tell a bit more about how it was done in Ukraine. As I said, in connection with how civil society was reacting on different crises. Why like this? Because I think it would be great to have this discussion in the end. I believe we all have something to complain, and now we will understand about what. So in 2014, when Revolution of Dignity happened in Ukraine, and when the war started in the east of Ukraine, Crimea was annexed by Russia, Ukrainian civil society reacted on that. Yeah, so we were observing a real boom in Ukrainian civil society. Many new initiatives were created, many organizations registered, people were, working for free. Yeah, everyone wanted to do something. Volunteer movements appeared, and so many people were involved in civil society like never before. It wasn't possible to have it in long run. The same thing happened in 2000. Just now in February, but I'm talking about what happened in 2014. So in 2016, all of those small initiatives, some of which grew, they started to settle down. So started this stabilization process. And this stabilization process was very different. In some organizations, they managed to overcome different challenges that you usually have. because, as I said, you cannot work for free. You cannot be volunteer for a very long time. You cannot live from one grant to another grant. Yeah, so you have to become sustainable organizations. Some organizations managed to do this. Some organizations they didn't. Still, active people left. But another thing appeared. Yeah, the emergence of grant eaters, we say it in Ukrainian, and convenient grant recipients phenomena. Since 2016, more or less, it became quite popular to talk about different civic activists as people who just receiving Western grants and not doing anything. And that situation happened more or less because that's true. There appeared many organizations that were professional grant receivers. Yeah, they were putting good reports over delivering good results. At the same time, many donors, they were feeling very comfortable receiving good reports and being sure that this project, like in 2 years, will be implemented, all money will be spent, all indicators we will achieve. Yeah. This is how it looked. I'm talking only about bad things. Don't think that Ukrainian civil society looks like this. Yeah, so I'm highlighting those things. At the same time, peace building area had a bit different problems when the stabilization process started, that it had not enough professionals. So Ukraine is a huge country, 40 million people, but very few people knew how to work in peace building area, how to work with dialogue, how to work with communities. Basically, I think I met all of them. Yeah, those people who are doing something, and it's not so many. And that's why such phenomena as parachuting appeared in Ukraine. So in case if there is some conflict or some issues that should be resolved, usually some organization was looking for funds and sending people, professionals, to resolve this conflict. Those professionals that I said, we had not enough of them. Mainly those people were from area of mediation, yeah, or those who had some skills how to work with communities. But this parachuting had a problem, the one that I mentioned, that donors often have their own agenda, and donors have very strict plans, and you cannot predict how long it will take to resolve some issue. So you cannot just send professional to some community and tell, okay, we have 3 months, make peace there. Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, because sometimes it takes more, sometimes less. Some processes open different processes and like this. So we make kind of research of that situation, and we were thinking about what actually we can do. And the organization with which I was working back then is Peaceful Change Initiative. We decided to pilot a project of developing peace infrastructure. And we picked 9 different communities in Kherson region. And unfortunately, all of those areas are occupied today, and 5 communities in Donetsk oblast. Why we picked those places in Donetsk Oblast? Those were areas with some existential conflict. Yeah, conflicts that people had different view on the future of the region, their communities, and also people who experienced violent military conflict. So they had a lot of things to discuss, let's say, in those places. In Kherson region, on that moment, we kind of predicted, and unfortunately, it became true in February of this year, that the region is under threat, and it's important to build kind of peace resilience mechanisms on the area close to Crimea. Yeah, we saw that it's dangerous region to be there, and also Kherson Oblast is kind of not everyone knows it, but it's ethnic diverse area. Yeah, you have different ethnic minorities there. So we wanted to test a new approach of dialogue initiative groups. So dialogue initiative groups were locally based initiatives that consisted of 3 people from each community in which we worked. 2 people, they were representatives of local activists or local civil society, but what is more important, not too angry activists, let's say. Yeah, often you have some people in some town that they are against city mayor and city mayor against them, and this is like holy war, and you can do anything. We took some people who were open for some discussions, and also the third person in that group was a representative of local authorities, but not from elective positions, but those who worked for local government. Not elective positions because so we don't want to leave space for politics and debates, but we wanted to have someone who will help us to make sure that our decisions of that groups, they will they have opportunity to be implemented. This is not something that activists just gather, discussed something, and decided what are we going to do in our community. So yeah, that's why this kind of composition. Those people, they went through professional training for dialogue facilitators. Dialogue facilitation, it's quite a long topic to explain how it looks, but this is something like group mediation. So you have some issue, you have different sides, you have professional facilitator who helps to moderate discussion and to come to some conclusion, which will be beneficial for all parties involved in that kind of conflict or issue, right? We were not working, we were not telling those dialogue initiative groups what they have to do. Yeah, so it was, okay, we will train you definitely in your community, and we knew it, yeah, because we visited those communities in advance to make sure that that local authorities are cooperative, that activists, they have capacity to implement some decisions. So definitely there are some issues to be resolved. And this is how during more than 1 year, those dialogue initiative groups, they were working with different conflicts in those places. And those conflicts were, or those issues were very different. I will give you a few examples, and I will be happy if you ask me a bit more after my this already too long speech. But so in one place, it was a village, and the conflict was like this. So there was a dormitory where lived people, 5 floors dormitory, five stores. There was a leaking roof, and people who lived on the top 2 floors, they were complaining that, okay, we have leaking roof, and we just have to everyone will give some money and can repair it. People from the 1st and 2nd floor, they were like, oh, we don't care, the water never comes to us. And they were working with this kind of conflict. In other place, we had very existential conflict, yes. So in one city, it's just here, yeah, it's very close to the front line now. There was a big discussion around Soviet monument that stayed in that place, and part of citizens of that community, they wanted to remove that monument, and other people, because they said it's Soviet, so we want to remove it. We live now in Ukraine, we don't want to have anything in common with that past. And other people said, oh, our town is so empty, and there is like no other monuments, and I have childhood memories with that Soviet thing. And so they had discussion around history of their place, and they in the end they came up to solution that they will not remove it but renovate. Yeah, so they will put there some new things to that monument, and it will be not only about Soviet past of that place, but also about Cossacks that live there, and other things connected with the history of that town. And they managed to come to this solution. In one more area, we had very interesting dialogue between community against versus company that was establishing this wind mills, this electric generators, because some people, they heard conspiracy theory that those wind generators, they will impact cows that they have, and they will have less milk. But people who were establishing those windmills, they were representatives of Danish or Swedish company, and they said, we don't want to discuss anything. Like, we own this land, and we have all permissions, so we want to establish those windmills here. So there was this dialogue, and all of them were conducted by people who were trained. And what is more important, those people who will stay in that community. So at the beginning, city mayors were quite skeptical. They were like, okay, we can give you someone from our city council or village council. People will work with you, but they had no high hopes for that. But in the end, in some communities, local authorities saw that such peaceful decisions, they have very economic aspect. Yeah, you can save a lot of money if you have people who are not conflicting around something, and you can have more investments. And some local authorities, they established on their local level official documents how they will resolve similar issues in their community, and how that will help them. Unfortunately, it was only pilot project, so we tried this in a few places. We described methodology. Something similar was tried in other areas, but we didn't continue doing this. Still, people who live in those communities, they were doing this themselves after our project. And something similar but yet different, we tried in Kosovo. The same organization was implementing project there, and also about Kosovo civil society. It was similar, but with some differences from Ukrainian one. Kosovo is way smaller. It's about less than 2 million people live there. Kosovo also has this situation where, like, it's post-conflict area, and you have lots of international donors with money that they want to spend, but not enough capacity of organizations who can spend those money effectively. So you have the situation with very professional organizations, very professional implementers, who like huge organizations doing everything what donors will want to do, at the same time not allowing smaller initiatives which have not enough capacity to make donors believe them, right? To try something new. And this is like vicious circle. The same thing, right? Good reports over something new, more interesting, and this kind of monopoly in different areas of civil society. And also, if we talk about conflict resolution, situation is extremely complicated there. More than 2 decades of different attempts to resolve. That we will talk about main acts here between Kosovo Serbs and Kosovo Albanians to resolve and develop somehow their relationships. So almost everything was tried, yeah? Like when we were meeting some people before the project, and we were telling, what about this? Maybe we can do something like that. We want to offer this approach. And they were like, oh, we tried this. It never works. This never works. It's impossible to do anything. And so we tried to find to try something very narrow in that point. So we focused on the most vulnerable people who were receiving social services, as people with disabilities, people who are receiving the social support. And we try to unite them around common issues, yeah, that both communities, Kosovo Serbs and Kosovo Albanians, have in might have in common. We were working in multi-ethnic communities in Kosovo, and approach was very similar. It was such advisory committees were established. It's kind of a platform for people of different ethnic communities who can discuss issues that they have and how they can improve delivery of social services in their community. It was quite good timing because Kosovo was developing new legislation on, and still the project is still ongoing. Yeah, the new legislation on delivery of social services, and people could really impact that. Yes, I cannot say that at the moment because, as I said, project is still going. We have some big success that I can share with you right now, but it led to better communication between civil society organizations from Kosovo Serb communities and Kosovo Albanians, because they were sharing information with each other. How else you can find funds to support what you're doing? Yeah, like Kosovo Albanians were explaining Kosovo Serbs how can you use Kosovo legislation, which allows civil society organizations to deliver some social services and receive money from the government. What is the procedure? Yeah, so they were explaining each other and at least started to cooperate like this. Chick doesn't work. Where? So this is the last one. What it all was about. Yeah, at first I wanted to give you examples of possible ways to work with communities in a post-conflict or a post-conflict stage, or those that are in danger. Yeah, like it was in Kherson Oblast. How we can build this peace infrastructure and internal capacity for conflict resilience. So people will be aware of ways to resolve something peacefully in that manner, in that way as I described. But also I wanted just to highlight those problems common for civil societies, that I could observe in Ukraine and in Kosovo and in Serbia, quite similar as well. That crises, they can and most definitely will stimulate civil society. It depends on how open it was before. But anyway, if something like war happens, people will react, and you will have this boom in civil society, many people who want to do something. But crisis response, usually in this case, is kind of a sprint. People cannot do this for a long time. You cannot work just based on this pure initiative and as volunteer for a very long period of time. And effective civil society should be very sustainable and should have enough capacity, should be ready for marathon, not to do heroic things every day, but do something step by step, day by day, and work sustainably for in long run, not depend on donors' cost, to be sure that we have this plan for 3 years and we can achieve it. And so also another thing is that crises bring money. Like donors usually come to countries where something happened, and they have money which they are ready to spend from respective governments or big international organizations. And also those money, they attract international organizations, people who used to work in similar situations in totally different contexts sometimes, somewhere in West Africa, for example, and then those internationals who live there, they suddenly transfer to Kiev and they try to do, basically the same things that they were doing there without good understanding. And also those international organizations, they usually receive money and they regrant them to local civil society. And this regranting, as I wrote here, international organizations would not play poker well because they don't want to risk. They want to be sure that we will spend everything and our indicators in monitoring and evaluation metrics will be perfect. Yes. And if no effort is made to listen the grassroots movements, they will never adapt or they will die out. So if you want to build sustainable civil society, you have to be ready to be flexible, to listen. You have to be open to understand civil society, not to simplify things, which is very often happens. Yes, I met so many people in Ukraine who just, internationals who just came from one place and they were like trying to understand everything in a few weeks and simplify situation. They're like, okay, those people speak Ukrainian, those people speak Russian, different language. That means the conflict is there. It's not like this. It's usually it's very complicated. It's not about language at all, right? And when I moved to Kosovo and I was living there, the first thing I wanted to do, not to do the same mistake. I was really trying to understand what is going on there. So who is watching which TV, what are the different relations, and we have to encourage those internationals to be open and to learn societies where they stay. And as I said, it's very important to support those civil societies, and they will become sustainable. You don't have to guide them all the time, yes, but you have to give those opportunities, be ready to risk, be ready to lose. And this is something that I said that we tried in also doing in Kosovo. I forgot to mention this. We were giving to those advisory committees some mini grants just based on what they wanted to spend them for. And we were like, they had the idea of some project. We were looking from our international perspective, thinking, okay, might be risky. This probably won't work, but we want them to try. They know this place way better than us, yes, and they know what to do. So maybe I'm talking a bit too long, but this is the whole idea, and would be happy to tell you more about this dialogue facilitation tool, or also open to discussion about civil societies. Thank you.